נצעק.
יש. היי מילינקה.
היי.
שלום.
Welcome to tzuzamen.
תזוזמן זה ביחד, together,
Yeah.
בצוותא. Are we talking English or Hebrew?
Oh, I forgot. That's right. We have to speak English.
Hi, Tzili.
I see the four of you.
Hi, Tzili.
Five.
The
Hi,
five.
Tzipi.
So we are back here like every week. And again, we are meeting today somebody who will open our eyes to some questions and some things that we would like to widen our horizon. My English is getting better. So anyway, so today we have Mili Avital. Will you please introduce her?
An artist.
More than that.
I get stuck.
She's an actress,
An actress,
a playwright, a writer,
director,
and
so on and so on. A little talented, huge talented and little body, Mili. Horizon. Mili, you're living in the end of the world. There's only horizon there.
Yeah, this is a good question to start with. How come, because I went to visit your area. It's really far in upstate New York and remote. I mean, it's like there are not many homes over there.
No.
Why did you run so far?
We have been quarantined, as people now know the term, but we really have been doing it for, this is our 6th year. And I think there was a moment when I took my daughter I lived in the West Village in the city, and I've lived there for 20 something years. I went from Israel straight there, and I stayed. And there was a moment where I took my daughter, my son to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, and my daughter, my 3-year-old daughter, to like a little preschool. And there was a jackhammer, like in the street. And I just stood there and I thought, that's it. I'm done. I'm done. I can't take it anymore. And that was it. It's almost like I couldn't, I felt like I can't hear myself. I can only hear the outside world. And that's what happened. And so we really took a risk because there was nothing here. I also didn't know anything about the area. I didn't know where the grocery store was, where the, I don't know, pharmacy, nothing. So we took the summer to sort of learn the place and then never looked back.
So this is a deja vu for you, because when you came to the States with dreams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Big dreams, you'll tell us about it. And again, you had to learn everything, not everything, but a lot. You had to learn from the beginning almost,
mm-hmm.
right? Being an Israeli, you came from the center of Tel Aviv, right?
Very true. We're from the suburbs, but yes, I saw myself from the center, but really I was from the suburbs.
So what did it took from you? How did you adjust and to what you had to adjust?
In general, I think you're right about the fact that you connected the two, because in general, I really believe in change. I believe that it's important. I mean, I get bored with the same thing for a long time. And I almost believe like it's essential for my brain. Like I have to learn something new all the time. And so it's a survival instinct. And what happened, the reason I moved to New York was that I worked a lot. So that's how I met Tzili, because she works at the Camera Theater and I was there. And so I was 17 when I started working. And by the age of almost 20, I did so much that I felt I need to do something that is challenging. And my motto in life is to follow my fear. I find out what it is that I'm afraid of the most, and I realized that's exactly what I have to do. So I was really afraid to lose the status that I got so quickly. I won the Israeli Academy Award, and I was 19, and I was offered everything. Everything was very easy. And I realized what would be the scariest thing. I thought, well, to let it go, right? Because that's what I wanted to do. So I let it go. And I thought, I need to learn everything from scratch, and to learn English, to learn Shakespeare, to learn a culture. So I sort of immersed myself. And I didn't think I would stay here, because I actually went to an acting school. And then a year later, I started working. But that was not the plan. But the plan was to take a challenge. It's the same thing when I moved here. I thought, I don't care about nature, never did. never did. I thought it was the most boring thing in the world. I always thought that being in the center of the world is the most important thing. And I thought, I know nothing about nature. I know nothing about living disconnected. So I have to figure it out.
I have to say that Mili is a combination of guts and she likes to experiment, and she's very focused, and she has a great support system from home. And I think that the base of where you come from allows you to fly as far as you can, and you feel conquered and you feel safe, and you do it very well.
So
exactly right.
When you came here, I mean, you know, we are Israelis. We don't have subtext. Right. I think so. Not in our behavior, not in the way. What you see is that's it. That's what there is. And then you come here, and how do you read different codes, different, you know, subtext, even, you know, facial expression, but codes of body language. If you can a little bit elaborate, because later we will get into you as an actress using it. Yeah. But let's start just how do you read it when you encounter it the first time or the first years?
Yes, that's the best question of all time, because that's exactly what I spend my time doing, which is really observing other people. And there's nothing that I love more than trying to figure out subtext anyway, because that's sort of the fun thing in life when someone says to you, you know, go over there, but really they mean come over here. So I love trying to figure out what's behind the language. And acting is exactly the place where you live behind the language. So it's an interesting question, and I think it's a complex question, because when there was a moment when I learned English, when I worked on my accent and adjusting to a new culture, and I thought, oh, this is so great, because acting is not about language at all. It's about what's behind the language. But then I actually changed my mind. I think acting is all about the language, because the language is what carries the subtext. So if you're not,
but language is not only words.
That's absolutely true.
All layers of behavior and
exactly
of a whole culture. So the words are only the outcome of the whole.
Exactly, which is why I still really I am studying the culture. There's so many layers to adjusting to a new culture. There's the accent, there's vocabulary. Like I had when my first couple of years in the States, I wrote to myself only in English, like to-do list, laundry, whatever. I wrote it in English because I thought, well, I have to create a relationship with these words. If I'm just going to say kvisa, and then when I'm acting, I have laundry, it's not going to have any meaning. I have to put an emotional experience with it. So I did that. But then the other thing is to learn the history, because you realize that when you many times I say things that to this day, that luckily I live with a writer who knows language very well, and I check with him and I say, does that mean, what is that, what's the history of this word, where did it come from? And there's something I have a daily a daily email from Webster Dictionary since I so I learn a word, and also from the Oxford Dictionary, which have very strange words. The Webster is sort of better in that way, but at least for me. But what I like is that I always look at the word, and then I scroll down how you use it, and then I scroll down to where it comes from, the etymology of it. And once you realize where a word comes from, you realize the whole world. So
it's really there's a big reason why you call a translation of a play or a script adaptation.
That's absolutely right.
You have to adapt the locals, and even if you move the play from culture to culture, country to country, you have to give it to the locals. So you have to adapt it, and it really takes time to understand where you are, not to schlep to bring everything where you come from and try to use it, just to listen and wait and see where you are. And I have an almost parallel process like you, and I use Seinfeld and David Mamet to help myself to settle, because I was listening and listening and listening. In the beginning, most of it just passed my ear, especially in David Mamet's plays or stories, because he's very, very, very detailed about New York. And slowly, slowly over the years, oh, there's another one. Oh, there's this one. And he takes, and I'm sure that even by now, I don't know all of it, because there's so much depth into what they do, but you feel more familiar or more comfortable, but you still don't know even that you missed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's really fascinating because usually, you know, when you listen to, I don't know, Perlman playing the violin, it's clear that he is leading a dialogue with the notes, with the music, with the phrases. I mean, it's really, you can see in his body language, facial, his fingers, the way they touch the violin, that there is a dialogue. You are the first one who actually I feel, maybe and I know I missed, now I have a lot of, you know, to think about the dialogue that we have with words. It's amazing.
It's true. Although, you know, I still feel, I mean, I guess everybody feels a little bit like an alien anyway in the world, in life. But I did say to my husband the other day, I said, you know, sometimes I look at Israeli comedy and an American comedy, and I compare them, and I realize I think I can't fit in anything, because comedy is about stereotypes, and I'm not really a stereotype of anything from Israel, and I'm not really a stereotype of anything from the States, and it's a very strange living where, and also so in terms of language, because I constantly want to improve myself, I do crossword puzzles, and I think I told you the other day I was doing the New York Times one, and then I decided once I got good at it, I thought, oh, now I'm going to do the one in Hebrew. It's going to be so easy, and then it was really hard for me. Not that and I realized that maybe I lost a little bit. I had 100% of something. Maybe I lost 5%. I don't know, and it's very frustrating. So I do feel that language is extremely important, and at the same time, I will never have a grasp of 100% of either side.
Where do you have the black holes of these differences with your kids?
That's a great question, because I realize that it's just like a song, right? If I play Arik Einstein or whatever, you know, some song from
famous Israeli singer,
famous Israeli singer, and I feel that is, I mean, what is there to say? It's so perfect, it will affect them even if they don't understand the words, and even if they do, and they do, so, at least my son understands, and it's so irrelevant to them, just like I am kind of irrelevant to them. It's not really, they have no emotional connection to it whatsoever. So I realized that the only way I can converse real conversations with them, emotional conversations, are in English.
But even
weird.
I insisted of talking in Hebrew. So actually with my son, once we came here for 6 months and 6 months, we go back and forth. But what happened to your identity? Being like what you call an alien. Where is your identity? How do you handle the identity issue?
I don't know. I think about it every single day. I think about, you know, people who come from other countries, you know, and start again. It's like Holocaust survivors, you know, who have a deep-rooted identity, but then they completely did a very, you know, sharp cut from their past and immersed themselves in a new culture. And I often think about, you know, whether or not, even though they wanted to embrace, and I only take them because that's an extreme example of somebody who did not want their past. I actually do, because I'm both. But let's even say someone who wants nothing to do with their past, don't even want to remember it. I don't know that they still feel American 100%. I don't know what it means. And I think, you know, the real world I feel I belong to is the world of artists. And that's the only world where I feel, oh, I'm not an alien there. I can recognize you guys from what?
In love.
Yes, and
I'm making it the same everywhere, I think.
Yes, exactly. And then that's how we all connect, and that's the reason.
But you know, I find that the older generation of the Jewish people who came to America, much older, like from the Second World War and before, they're so thankful to America, and they wanted to be part of the American nation very fast, and they take it they're very proud to be an American. So, and I think that like every old person, the older you get, you go back to your childhood. So then maybe they get detached a little bit, or they want to go back to their own roots. But you know, it's very interesting because my boys grew up here, and every time when we mark the Israeli Holocaust Day, to us it's so obvious because we grew up in an environment that talked about it all the time, showed films all the time, spoke to people all the time. The whole country was united in the same day in a very, very meaningful way. In New York, when it's all open, doesn't matter how many Jews are in the city, it's very different to relate. It's very tough to relate. I always put a candle, like a memorial candle, and they say to each other, it's probably either the Holocaust Day or the Memorial Day for the soldiers. But then I was looking for ways to bring them to experience something, some connection to this. And I found there's a synagogue in the city that they just bring, of course, they pray for the 6 million, but they bring relatives or survivors who just come up to the stage and say their name. And they said, my father, my mother, my aunt, my uncle, my brother. And I looked at them and I said, when somebody said my mother got killed or my brother, they have a mom, they have a family, they have a father, they can relate to. And they used to get glued to the bench, and till everybody, and then they always showed some film or did something. So this was the only way I was able really to bring them, because you cannot feel it unless you really can relate to. And so it's very hard to be part of someplace else unless you can relate to somehow or at some level.
I just want to tell you, you're intimidating me with your English. I went to school here. I did my PhD when I was like, I don't know, 22 or something. And then I went back, of course. And I teach in English, and listen, it's like.
But I worked on it. It was not. If it was important to you, you would have done it. For me, it was very important. I realized at some point that it was the difference between. I mean, when I'm gonna sound very old, which maybe I am, but in the early 90s when I started, the supporting roles were not even foreigners. They were only Hispanic. Only. There was not like an Arab. There was no Arab, there was no Israeli, there was no French, there was nothing. There was either a Hispanic person or American. And I remember the line from my agents, they constantly said, well, Americans are not used to that. They're not, their ears are
very gentle ears.
Very gentle ear, right.
Yeah. And so I didn't have
in a way lazy ear.
Yeah.
Lazy ear. And if I had to, yes, of course, changed and how great it is.
And they don't like to see foreign films with subtitles.
Exactly. And also they don't like to make an effort to
it's nice that each one is a bit different and has its own colors, because for Tzipi, this is one of her colors, and I think she talks the English Hebrew to all her students, and they like and they
love it.
Yes, so it's like, it's okay.
Yeah, they think I'm very funny. By the way, they think I'm French.
That's the best.
And then I say that I am like Scarlett O'Hara. I'm from the South, and then they laugh and they know that I'm not French. However, I think that I read or something that you're going to, because you mentioned the Holocaust, you're going to play a character, Holocaust survivor, in a film?
Yes, it's in the works, which means, in our industry, it's in the works. And until I'm on the set, I will not know that it's actually in the works. But it is.
By the way, I have to tell you that Marlon Brando waited until 9 o'clock in the morning in some productions until the bank will be open. And then if the check came in for the day, then he went to the set.
Exactly.
If he was not in the bank, he didn't come to the set.
Exactly.
Not always, but this is the legend about him, I don't know. So you're just waiting for the first day of shoot.
Exactly. And rightfully so, because, but it's a tough question always, this thing of whether you invest in something, if how do you know what to invest in? Because if you don't invest in it, it's not going to happen for sure. So but this will happen, and I'm confident. But But yes, it's a really interesting journey to learn. It's not the first time I'm learning about it. I actually did a series called Uprising, which was, I think, on NBC or maybe ABC. I think it was NBC. And it was a mini series years ago where I played one of the characters, real people who were part of the uprising in Warsaw Ghetto. And there were two female leads in this series, and I did not get either one of them. And I was furious. And I said to the director, but I don't understand. I mean, this woman is tough. She's a leader. She's getting everybody, through the actually underground pipes to escape the ghetto, and I'm Jewish and I'm Israeli. And he said, you don't look tough. It was heartbreaking.
Oh my God.
So I had to accept the role of the romantic role of the girlfriend of somebody. Anyway,
So
long story, but I insisted on doing it because it was important to me. I really wanted to know, to experience.
So let's start, if I can go a step, because before I come to this role. So how do you decide which role to take? So when you read the script, do you first go by your emotions, how you react to the script, or you read it like kind of trying to understand rationally what it's about? Or how do you approach the first reading that makes you decide to take a script or not, to take the role?
Well, it's true that when I read a script that I am interested in, part of as an actress or interested in being part of, I do look at it from the point of view of the character. So I'm in the character that I am up for, and there are two parts to it. Number one is that I am really a sucker for good writing. So if something is well written, I don't care what the role is. I don't care. I'll pay to be in the movie. I'm just so happy that there's a good piece of writing and comes to, that's like the joy of being part of a great story. So that's the most important part. So if the character is really well written, but this writing is not great, then I can't convince myself to do it. The other thing is that I do look for the internal conflict of the character. So if a character if it's clear for me what she wants and she just gets it, it's not interesting. If I find the conflict internally to be interesting, not just the problem she has outside of her. Let's say she wants to marry this guy, but that's one, but he is, lives on another planet. So that's a problem she has to figure out. But if internally she has a conflict, which is what she's not sure she wants to do it, because then she's going to have to give up her job, then, it just starts, I feel like the war inside, and then that makes me want to do it. But I do think that I had an acting teacher who said, to be a good actor, you have to know literature. You have to read. And I do. I read. I think without reading, you can't tell what's good.
Yes, I agree. So we'll come back to the film you're going to do soon. But so what extent you have to experience in life something that is similar or parallel to the role you're going to play? And if not, where do you go to dig it from yourself, from your bank of emotions, whatever?
Well, I think, really, I don't know if that there's a really clear technique to anything, since I don't have a clear path, but I do know how I personally respond to things. So I have to, if I don't go to myself first, but I actually go to the world and I research and I bring images and I read books around it, and my imagination starts working. So I'm imagining, I am in 1930 in Poland, and I do see the horses, and I do see, if my imagination is working that much, then my own inside is just going to follow and open up. So it's almost like a mask. You need the masks in order to tell the truth. So you need the imaginary world in order to live your truth. That's sort of.
But I believe that almost everybody can find everything in themselves. They're just not gutsy enough to expose it.
Yes.
Or they want to admit to themselves that they're aware, or they know it's there. They like to hide it and maybe bring something else. But everybody has the whole range.
Yeah, because if you take fear or sense of losing. So if you are not in this situation, you are afraid of losing somebody who is dear to you, right?
Exactly. And
But
you have
mainly on the not nice parts, like being mean or being aggressive or
We all have it.
Yes, and people prefer
that's
to hide
really
it.
very scary. I find it very, very scary. I mean, acting to me is very scary, which is why I have to follow my fear and do it. But I do try to avoid it as much as I can. And then if I have something that's really, really good and I can't say no to, I usually do it. And I'm not just saying it, it's true. It is really scary to me. And so I am attracted to it because of that, but it's very scary to be vulnerable and you know, feel the feelings that you're trying not to feel in your daily life. And at the same time, it's the only place that you can feel it and explore it and do something with it, because it's the safe place. Art is in general, you know, it's a
Who
safe
is your
place.
favorite playwright?
My favorite playwright would definitely Shakespeare. That's why I came to the States. That was my dream, was to be able to understand Shakespeare. And when I understood the vocabulary and when I started understanding what iambic pentameter is, which is the rhythm, and I started understanding it like poetry, then I realized that there is, like you said before, Tzili, there's no such thing as translation.
Right.
It's a joke. It's like, and by the way, I tell the kids that the reason why they should know Hebrew, it's the same thing with the Bible. The Bible is so beautiful. It's so beautiful that there is no way you can translate, in Bereshit bara Elohim.
And also, by the way, the translation has to do with culture, because when the American translate to something, they take all this thing out of the story and they make it politically correct and they just kill it. So then you really lose the essence of everything.
And from an American point,
what do you mean mine? When I was young, well, now I'm young too, but when I was 16, I had a bag of tricks, which I will get to you with a bag of tricks as an actress. But I had a bag of tricks whenever I met a boy. I had one sonnet by Shakespeare that I could recite, which I always recited. And then I have a poem by Rilke. You know, so that was a two things that I had in my pocket, which I pulled out to show.
But that's presentation. Who
No,
did you
I really,
like the most?
that's it. I chose two things that really affected me.
Okay.
I must admit. So
I always prefer Chekhov.
Chekhov. No, Chekhov I came later, much later.
But you can't, but here's the thing. I love Chekhov too, but I saw once a production in Israel of Russians when it was, you know, with all the big Russian actors.
Yeah.
And then I realized that whatever I knew about Chekhov, I did not understand at all.
Absolutely.
Because it's a culture. And it's, you know, the only person that I think really did it well, but even with him, you feel but he did it so well. It's like I want to cry, is Nabokov. And I read his autobiography and which he wrote in English, and he wrote it so well in English. And it's such an incredible use of language. And then he also wrote, of course, I mean, he's Russian and he spoke French. So spoke French, Russian, and English. And he taught in Columbia, by the way, as well. But that was the only human being that I thought could, that was able to not translate, but to create a new language.
It's called Tzili. There was a production of, I think his name is Nelson. He had 3 trilogy about Rhinebeck. It's a place upstate New York.
Yeah, I know Rhinebeck. I live next.
It took 2 families, the Gabriels, and I forgot the name, and they met every year just before the election. So it is about the family and everything, but the context was the elections, American elections. But then he did in a very remote place, Chekhov, and he did it with the same group of people and the same approach, which is a empty stage, and they all come in for a meal. So they carry the chair, they carry the pots, they carry the milk, everything, and they start to, and they were dressed in, and I never saw so accessible, pure, clean, a Chekhov. It was.
He figured out the DNA. And he just followed the DNA. and they did it in English. They were Americans, but they really followed the DNA, and it was pure pleasure.
And I think he would be
Yeah.
very happy to see it. But I want to go back and ask you, do you have a bag of tricks? Let's say for crying. If you need to cry, is it a bag of tricks, or is it a technique, or being so engaged at the moment, or being at the moment of?
I think it's being so engaged. I mean, the trick for me, the bag of tricks, is I know now what I have to wake up in myself to be that open. And so whether it's to be relaxed, whether it's a certain image or something that makes me want to go there. But for me personally, unless I am in the world and I convince myself I'm in it, then I can't act. I have to. I believe everything when I'm acting. I really truly believe that is the real reality. You have to bring yourself to believe it. So that's why you have to know everything, and you have to give things meaning. So this is not just a cup,
but it is a reality. Once you go on stage, you create a reality of a different world, and you invite everybody to take a look at your reality for that time. And it's just the moving in and out, that's what creates the differences. But the stage is a reality. It's a whole world.
Exactly.
So I know your husband is a screenwriter who got the Oscar. His name is
Charles
Randolph.
That's it. So I guess then he writes, I guess he's supposed to be at the moment, every minute, every second, in order to create it. I mean, when you see him writing, when you talk, or when you are dealing with, even in real life, do you feel that he's really engaged all the time in what he writes?
It comes in stages. He has, first of all, the period where he does his research, like I do, like I'm sure everybody who has to enter a world. So he researches on Google and at night and whatever. He's always like on this computer. And then when he writes, he's really funny because he does this. He's like this. He's like,
so he is in the moment.
He lives it, and he doesn't know he's doing it, so he probably shouldn't see this interview.
Right,
but,
you said he listens.
What's that?
You said he listens. Listening.
He listens to his dialogue. Yes, he does. And he's I can tell he's in it. But then he also works. It depends on the stage. Again, then there's a stage where he edits what he just wrote, and I know that he edits because he's more quiet. But sometimes he's in the dialogue. He definitely he doesn't say words.
You know that it's not connected really, but Spielberg always say that the most difficult thing for an actor is to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And to help, to make sure that the audience can listen to the thoughts of the character, right? Listen to the thought of the character coming from outside in, but then you as an actress, ability to listen. It's very difficult, actually.
But always actors are talking about good partners. These are the partners that listen to you and you can really talk to them.
But that's good for life too, right?
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Very hard to
people listen, some people don't.
So what do you look at a director?
What do I look at? I worked with good ones and bad ones, and the bad ones have no emotional connection to you, or they're not even in tune with good of the place. That's very hard. It's very sad. And I had one director, Robert Benson, he did The Human Stain, and I had a much bigger part in that film, but it was cut out for reasons that I know had nothing to do with me, but it was still painful. But so I had like one scene there. But Robert Benson did Kramer versus Kramer, and he's a huge, wonderful director with a lot of experience. And he did something that was just the best. He just sat on the corner. He was sitting on the set with us, not behind the camera. He was on the set. He just did this. That's the only, I didn't get any, and I'm really good friends. I said good friends with the lead actress in it, the younger lead actress. It was Nicole Kidman, but she played Nicole Kidman as a young woman, Jacinda Barrett, and Jacinda is still in touch with Robert Benton, but she said that you know, I said, was it just me, like, because I don't know, my part was that way, and she said, no, that's what he did with me too. It's just yeah. And the same thing with Jim Jarmusch when I asked him, I said, well, you know, I thought about my character and what do you think? And he said, I don't know. What do you think? So it really gives you.
I feel that you have to look at the black of the eye of the actor in order to really be in tune. But
yes, exactly.
This is really something. It's almost the same, but it's anyway. I have to think about it.
But I think in a way, look, the directors, no matter what they do, they're in your hands. It's here on my computer.
Oh,
we are all looking.
It's jumping all the time. You know, basically the directors are in the hand of the actors, and they choose the actors that they can trust them, you know, for the road. If it's not the right one, they change it. And once they have their own kind, their own family that they like to adopt, they let them play.
Exactly.
If they like the road that they take, it's okay, you save them basically. I think each one has, some directors are better with working with actors, some directors are not so much. They're good for the scene more than to the actors. And yes, and it's fascinating to see the outcome. And sometimes it doesn't come out well, and sometimes it doesn't cross the stage, sometimes it doesn't get to the audience, and sometimes it's just like electric company, you know, you go on stage and puck, there's a big strong light and you're like, ah, this is the best, you know. This is the magic. This is the magic.
It's a magic, and it's a miracle when it happens, because it's so rare to have all those elements that create that electricity. The worst director I had was the director who I didn't know that it was not just me, but I really did think for a long time it was just me. He was a director in Los Angeles in some play that I did, and he fell asleep. I would act, and
a psychiatrist like this.
What's that?
I went one to a psychiatrist, and then I looked, and he fell asleep. So I was quiet for 45 minutes. Wow. So you had the same experience with an actor.
Who paid who?
I paid $250.
Tzipi, your experience was maybe worse, but mine was certainly not encouraging.
It was funny.
Very bad. It was so bad. And then they said, no, there's a disease, you know, when people fall asleep. I can't remember the name of it. And I was like, yeah, fine, whatever. I still took it personally.
Listen, if I move just for a second from your acting world, I know that you gave a lectures. I don't know how it's called, the Zionism 030 something.
No. I did it there, but it's called How to Speak Israeli in 5 Words, and it has a parallel lecture that I prepared that's called How to Speak American in 5 Words. So it's basically 5, just like we talked about language, that words carry more than just the letters. So I chose 5 words in Hebrew that I think sum up the whole culture.
You brought all these 10 words, the 5 and the 5, to your play, the play that you wrote. So tell us a little bit about it, because this was really the basic thing, the core of the play, that you were trying to move one culture to the other one, and you did it through romance, through dating. So just tell us a little bit about it. How did you push both sides into the whole game?
Right. So next stop is what I call a comedy of misconnections, which means that as we pursue our dreams and love and everything else, our intentions, like you said, it's all about the subtext, because our intentions can be there, but if we're from a different culture, the subtext is going to take the front seat. So if you say, come sit down, you know, it's one thing, but if you think come sit down, but I don't want to make an effort for you, and you say sit, for Israelis, it's not a problem, right? It's not a problem if someone just says sit. In fact, you feel closer to them. You think, oh, this is so great, no manners, we can hug, we can just be ourselves. And for Americans, it's humiliating. So that area in between is what the play is. I was really trying to write about, and I did it with Noga Milstein and Ben Perry. And what was really fun about it is that we got to explore American characters and Israeli characters, because within American characters there's so many stereotypes as well. So and the misconnection that we feel, that's back to that feeling of feeling like an alien. It's like this misconnection. You think you're there, you think you're saying the right thing. And when I was 20, I don't know, maybe like 22, 23, I had an experience that sort of made me feel that okay, this will be probably this weird area I'm going to live in for a long time, which was I had a manager, and I just finished my first movie, Stargate, and my manager was setting up meetings with all kinds of people, just so you go in, you say hello. So a lot of them were New York producers, Broadway producers, because I was really wanting to do theater. And so I went and met a Broadway producer, maybe this guy called Greenberg or something, I can't remember. He was like 100 years old, very nice. And I came in and he said, "Oh, you're from Israel, coming in, please sit down." And he made me feel very comfortable. And then he said, "Why don't you come for Shabbat dinner at my house this Friday, where you meet my family, my kids?" And I thought, oh my goodness, this is the sweetest thing ever. I went to his family. It was some beautiful apartment on Park Avenue. And I was really moved that he was sort of the first person that like made me feel so, at home. And so that was Friday night. On Monday morning, I decided I have to somehow show him my gratitude. So I went to a flower shop across the street from my apartment, and I chose flowers, and then I looked for cards to go on the flowers. So I thought, Mazal Tov, no, not Mazal Tov, congratulations, no. And I kept looking for the right card, and one of them said, with sympathy. I thought sympathy, like simpatico. Sympathy. He's a friend. He's like,
Oh my God.
I'm not gonna say with love, but I'm gonna say with sympathy. So I wrote to the Greenberg family with sympathy,
Wow.
Mili, and I sent it to him. And he called me the name, as soon as he got it, he called me and he said, "Hi, I just called to tell you I'm not dead." So it was.
But I have the same experience, because when I went to school and I was studying television and films, and we were on a set. So I got to the camera and I couldn't screw the screw. Now in Hebrew, it's screw the screw. So I told to my professor, he was really a wasp, and I said, "Can you teach me how to screw?" in front of everybody. And that teach me how to screw. If you don't know what it is, Google it. Can you make love to me? But then I even went further, because when you end the show, you say wrap it up. I couldn't say it. I say rape.
Oh my God.
So that was my beginning in America. That was the first month or so. And they never closed the door when I came for a meeting with my professor. They thought that I am, but
about to wrap him.
Yes. But listen, Mili, you have another side of you. I don't know if we have time for that, Tzili, but you'll judge. I noticed that you are very open also it's almost like an activist. You are in a way
activist.
You're an activist. I don't know all the areas, but for example, you were talking about you were lectured about getting pregnant, difficulties in getting. I think you were also talked about sexual harassment, right? And I think there are other areas. I don't know if you are still out there.
I am. I'm actually still very involved with the Rape Crisis Center in Israel. I'm very involved in at this stage, it's really trying to create a financial secure foundation for them. But I'm involved. I really try to keep up with the daily, like what is it that they're doing. It's very important to me, and it seems almost inevitable. Like, how could you not? It's one of those things that you don't say, I really want to do it. No, I don't want to do it, but how could I not? How could I not want to give all my time to what they're doing?
Right.
How could I not try to help? And in terms of the fertility treatments, I have to tell you that your friend there, Tzili, said to me when I came to her and I said that I had fertility issues, she said, just tell me about it. I'll tell you everything you want to know. And not only she helped me, but she told me what another friend of ours told her, which was, you have nothing to be ashamed of. You did not kill, you did not whatever, steal. You have nothing to be ashamed of, and take this and pass this on. Take this sort of
Absolutely.
and that's how I pass it on. I have nothing to be
in a process of getting pregnant for a long time together. And I remember that Mili was so busy with her career, and I told her, if you really have a problem and you want to get pregnant, stay put. And
exactly.
we had meetings every week. Every week we were talking about it. I already had the boys after my journey, and then Benjamin came.
But you know, the thing that you gave me confidence with, what was really hard to hear, is that I have to stay put, because I'm in a profession where I have to travel, and I have to. And in order to do fertility treatments, I had to go every morning at 7 a.m. to do my blood test. So I gave up, and I decided it was very, very encouraging to know that there's another woman behind me who was saying that's the right thing to do, because we all hear, you know, your career, woman should have your, especially my very feminist mom, you know, who was shocked that I stopped. But I said, no, I want to have a family. Some people, you know, it happens to them easily. For me, career happened very easily, but this is something I would like to build, and to give ourselves this sort of, you know, patience and acceptance was very, very important.
Character.
The main thing I think is, and it's about everything, it's not about what you give up, it's about what you gain. And if you see what you gain and you look at the road ahead of you and said, I want to get there and I want to gain it. So some things you need to give up, but it's not necessarily negative. You just need to make room and focus and give the priority. And
but you do give up.
Absolutely.
But I think we all do give up as women. We give up. I mean, I feel, you know.
It's okay. It's not all bad.
It's okay, exactly.
Yeah.
By the way, we have to finish soon, I think, but we almost started in the beginning that you were talking about words matter. Remember?
Yeah.
And it's very relevant today.
Yeah.
In our political life, of
Always,
what happened in the Capitol,
always.
and what people hear, how they interpret it, how you reach people and push their mind to do sometimes horrible things. And it's everywhere, also in our country, when we were told the Arabs are running to the vote, go and chase and go first, and then what happened?
You talk about Netanyahu now in Israel.
Yes, you know, and then today what happened in America with Trump, you know, we don't have to go into it, but you know, words matter, and we tend to forget it in real life. How do we talk to our children? How we talk to our fellow people?
And the media, how the media is using
and
words.
if the media will not change, they will not go back, I guess, to just be news, tell the news. We are kind of lost.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. And words, just like we thought at first, like, oh, it's not about words, it's all about words. And words are what we carry in our heart. This is what I hear, is what my parents told me, you know. This is, and like he was saying, I have the confidence to do what I do because I hear the words my parents told me. You can do it. The sky's the limit, keep going. This is what I hear. So I have to tell you that in our home, which we're a lot about words because we both like to read, and my kids, and we all love words. And my daughter gave me a contract yesterday. She wrote down a contract and she said, you and daddy use a lot of bad words. And I said, so we always tell her there are no bad words, they're just bad choices. You know, a word, you know, you want to say the F word, say the F word. It's just a word, but make a choice. If you're an intelligent person, you don't want to use it, you know, you don't want to use it. Maybe.
Right. So what do you tell your husband when you want him to do the laundry? American husband. Or Israeli, it's even worse.
Words matter.
The garbage.
Words matter. For us, it wasn't the laundry. It was one of the first things when I realized, I'm really not realizing how our cultural difference is so extreme, is when he wore a shirt when we were just dating. He wore a shirt and I said, change it. Like that, change it. My face was like, it's ugly. My hand was like, do it. Like,
Change
it like this. And he literally didn't talk to me for a week. He thought it was so rude. He said, what? How? First, you're telling me, you're telling me what to do in such a like I'm beneath you. You're rude. So then now I don't say that. I said, the other shirt you bought the other day just looks great on you.
Very nice. Oh, when you consider to say, okay.
That's right. So anyway, I have to give now in the contract I have with my daughter, I have to give $5 to her if I use the D word, damn. I have to use, $10 for S word, $20 for F words. So
no matter what, you're down to money. That's it. Money wins over words.
Yeah, it's good pocket money.
Yeah.
And that was I really like the conversation with Mili.
Right.
Mili,
Milinka, thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye, Booby.
It was really nice.
Thanks.
And thank everybody who came to our tzuzamen.
Right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
See you next week,
See you next
everybody.
week.
Bye.
Bye.